That brings us to the 6 life areas. Now, this is a model that helps us broaden our scope and develop ourselves in balance. So where the circle of growth is more a way of going deep, this is more a way of going wide. It is a model, but there's many different models out there that have a similar sort of intention, right? You have the 12 life areas or the 8 life areas, and this one is the 6 life areas. This one I choose to use, but feel free to make it your own. Feel free to modify it, or feel free to use any other model for this part of the system. I mean, feel free to use any model for any part of the system, but particularly for this part of the system. The elements that the 6 life areas are connected to, it's connected to our vision goals, it's connected to our core insights, and it has some reflection questions. So it is related to the vision goals in the sense that per life area, we want to set one vision goal. And then our core insights, we can sort of label them under the different life areas. And maybe then over time, you can also see I have many more core values and principles for this one life area over the other. So maybe I should also set some for the other, or maybe I just simply value this one more. So in that way, it helps us to sort of get a better understanding of these different life areas. Inside of the graph, you can see it is up here at the top on the same level as the vision goal. So that means that during our quarterly review, which is something we're going to build in a few elements, we check in with one of our vision goals and we check in with our life areas to see if there's anything that needs to be changed in how much focus we want to put in any given life area. And like I mentioned earlier, the key goal here is to enable us to grow and develop in balance, right? It can be so easy to tunnel down on one aspect of life, but we as humans are holistic beings. There are so many facets to our life, and to really live a meaningful and good life, it's important that we give attention to all of these different life areas. So what then are these 6 different life areas? The first one is the mental area, and this is everything that is going on inside of ourselves. And I really love this quote. It's a mistranslation from the Buddha, but I still really love it, that we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. What this suggests to me is that our experience, everything that we call reality, is our subjective experience. There is no way for me to ever experience what you experience because I filter everything through the mental, through the cognition, right? This mental life area that relates to everything that we experience, everything that's going on the inside. It also relates to everything like learning and cognition and acquiring skills. So this is really everything that happens inside of ourselves. Then the second one is the physical area. And the physical is sort of our way of manifesting and interacting with the external world. So it's taking what's inside of me, putting it into the world, but then also taking what is in the world and putting it inside of me. And this is basically everything related to the body, right? So it means working out, it means eating healthy, it means making sure that we are clean and healthy. So everything related to the physical part of our lives. I switched this one around with the next one. So I'm just going to show both of these because the third one is the social area. The moment that there is more than one being, more than one person in the room, that's when the social area comes into play because we are not creatures that live in isolation. We are always in interaction with other people. We're super, super social creatures. If you don't give a baby attention after it's born, if you don't touch it for too long, it will literally die, right? If you get rejected from a tribe, once again, you will literally die. So human beings have a very big incentive to be together. We're super social creatures. And the social area relates to everything that has to do with other people. So this is friendship, this is family, this is business partners, this is everything that we do with other people. And one of my favorite quotes related to the social area is by Naval Ravikant. We want to play long-term games with long-term people. So the type of people that we want to get into our lives want to be the people that we want to collaborate and live with over the long term. People that are ethical, people that are moral, people that are kind, compassionate, right? And we live in a unique time. We live in a unique time where back in the day, when I was part of a tribe, you sort of had to deal with it, right? If you were part of a very conservative, tiny community, you had to deal with that. And if people were oppressing you or harassing you or just doing anything you didn't want them to do, you could either just take it at face value, or you could try to oppose it, get rejected from your tribe, and then indeed die or live in poverty. And rejection was really painful, really deep in those days. Nowadays, we live in this globalized community, right? There's all these other communities that we can be a part of. And if you don't like the group of people that are around you, if you don't resonate with those people, if they are being unethical, if they are harassing you or pressuring you into doing things that you don't want to do, you can choose a new tribe, right? There's unlimited tribes to choose of. So now is a better time than ever to find people that really resonate with you and that you can play long-term games with. Okay, which brings us to the creative area, which is the playing of games. The creative area is when we create or when we generate anything in this external world, right? So we have this mental area. This is the things going on in my head. Then I have my body, which is sort of this tool I can use to manifest that into reality. And then creation is the actual manifesting that I do. So I take an idea and I turn that into something in reality. This is what we've been talking about with the production capacity, right? I'm using the knowledge and the execution to create value. And that is where the creative area comes into play. A key word there is value, which leads to the financial area, which is a little bit of a misnomer. You could also call this the capital area, the material area. But this is basically where creative and social come together. Because I can create value, but you can also create value. And we can then exchange that value. And that is sort of where this financial area comes into play, where we're creating value and we're exchanging this with other people. And for this one, it really goes that 1 + 1 = 200, right? One thing I forgot to mention about this creative area is that as humans, we have this very unique quality. And that quality is that we can create tools. So not only can we just make things, but we can make things that help us make better things. And the creation of tools is what allows us to exponentially grow the amount of value that we created. For example, the first time a human started using a rock as a tool, right? Maybe they carved the rock a little bit and started using it as a tool. That was millions of years ago. Going from that rock to making a bone tool, so let's say, for example, a harpoon made out of bone, carved out of bone, there was a gap of millions of years between that rock and that bone. For comparison, the gap between the internet being born and now is less than a century. So we create tools that help us create better tools, right? Our grandparents were using a hammer and a nail to build a house. The smartest people in the world at the moment are shooting a laser beam in nanometers at a falling drop of tin to engrave a pattern into a silicon wafer, which they then put into a device which allows me to draw on this screen and share that with all of you. That is the power of humans to take tools that make better tools. And we are truly in an exponential curve when it comes to creativity. So creative ability, very important thing to mention and also a very important thing to master. And the last area is the spiritual area. This is everything that transcends the self. This is everything that is bigger than you. Part of this is related to the social, things like your community just around you, but it can also be things even bigger than that. It can be the generations yet to come, or it can be a religion, or it can be some sort of meditative or contemplative practice. The spiritual area is related to anything that transcends the self. Okay, so we have limited resources available, right? We talked in the previous chapters about trade-offs, right? Saying yes to one thing means saying no to everything else. And the same goes for where we put our focus. So maybe at this point in your life, you really care about your physical health, or maybe you really care about your financial health. What you can do is that you can say, okay, from this 100% of resource that I have available, I'm going to dedicate 50% to this one life area. That is a choice that you can make. But that also means that all these other life areas only get a very small amount of energy. Now, it also means that for this thing, we do get a compounding effect that is much earlier. So a good example of this is for people that choose to work really hard when they're young, earn a lot of money, invest it early, and then by the time they're 35 or 40, they retire, right? That is a strategy that people use. They sort of go all in on that financial area, and they use that compound interest to get very early returns. But it also means you will have less time to focus on other things. Now, I am usually a fan of a more balanced development because I think different life areas also compound into each other in ways that might not seem obvious to us. But this is a personal choice that you can make. And I also think it is better to focus on enhancing your strengths than fixing your weaknesses. But sometimes a weakness is really bad. So sometimes you might want to actually focus a bit more time on your physical health or on your social health. And that is why we allow ourselves inside of this database to also track per quarter, like every quarter or so, we revisit to see, okay, how much do I want to focus on each life area? And when I choose to focus on this one life area, I'm also giving myself permission to focus less on those others. So for example, if I'm saying, hey, I really want to focus on the social area right now, the upcoming quarter, it's going to be 30% social. That also means I will forgive myself for not being as creative, right? And thinking about this beforehand, giving ourselves permission beforehand really helps us to not feel as miserable, because otherwise we're going to have unrealistic expectations and we're not going to be able to meet those. However, I teased this very briefly in the vision goals part of the video. There is this principle called the 20-80 principle. And basically what this principle states is that 20% of the input is responsible for 80% of the output. So that means in any given system, 20% of the input is responsible for 80% of the output. So for example, 20% of your employees are creating 80% of the value. 20% of the videos that I publish are getting 80% of the views. 20% of the exercise that I do are causing 80% of the growth. And it isn't always exactly 20-80. Sometimes it is 30-70, but sometimes it's also 5-95. But basically what this shows that a very relatively tiny amount of input results in a very large part of the output. But the opposite is also true, that 80% of the input is responsible for 20% of the output. So what we want to do is we want to triangulate what is this 20% that is causing this 80%. And we basically want to be cutting this part out. Because, for example, if indeed you are really focusing on this one life area, right? And you have this part already down, like you already got the 20% down, and you're working on your business, and that's leading to 80% of the result. If you are then choosing to use all of this time to just get a relatively small part of gain, that is not very efficient. That's not very effective. So what I'd much rather do is focus on that 20% per life area. And inside the Notion template, you will also find there is a checklist with the 20-80 that you can do per life area. If you master those 20% things, you are already good. And I can already tell you, they're not very complex. They're not going to cost you any money. It is cheap. It has been around for centuries, if not millennia, and it's really effective. So that's the stuff we're going to cover also inside of this 6 life areas database. Cool. So let us actually then go and dive into the database, because we like databases, or at least I like databases. I love databases even. All right, we're going to say 6 life areas. This one is going to get the mountain emoji. We're going to turn this into a table, which for some reason, when you turn it in a table, it changes the emoji. That also happened when we were trying to do the vision goal one. I can also see that I'm frowning, looking very serious right now. Let's go into inside 6 live areas and then actually get the database cover. Okay. relatively simple database. I'm going to call this master table. We're going to add the mountain over there. And I'm just going to create a few empty ones so it looks nicer. Okay. First, we're going to have the name property, which is going to be the life area, the name of the life area. And then we're going to have a number property, which we are going to call the generative ability. And this is sort of the amount of energy that we have. And in total, this will be 100%. And as we are doing our quarterly reviews, we can sort of give a percentage for each of the different life areas. So over here, I'm just going to say ring is divided by 100, indeed, because it's 100 and the number format should be a percentage. And why is that doing 1500? I don't know. 15%. Perfect. Then we are going to also create a rating over here. And this is also we can track during our quarterly review. So we can give each life area rating to sort of see what we're at with these life areas. Now, it's not that we're going to complete a life area, but this is just a way of saying, okay, currently I feel like I'm giving my physical area 3 stars. Maybe I want to increase the amount of focus I put on this in the next 3 months. Or maybe it's still fine. And then in the next quarterly review, I see, okay, now it's actually 2 stars. And later on, using an automation and a formula, we're also going to track over time how this is sort of developing. And then we can see like, okay, maybe it's now really time to start focusing a bit more on this specific life area. And let's just throw this in there. Give it some color coding. I always really like to make things look pretty. But of course, functionality first, aesthetic second. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be functional. And then the last thing that we do is we connect it to our vision goals database that we just created. So I'm going to say vision goals at this two-way relationship. Boom. Okay. Beautiful. Simple database setup. Now let us dive into creating the template, because this is where most of the stuff happens. Now, the thing with these life area templates is that we are going to create one for every life area. We fill them in once, but then we don't have to do that again very often. I mean, we can revisit them whenever we want, but it's not like we're going to keep creating life areas the way we might create projects or the way we might create vision goals. So it's more of going to be a one-time thing. Let me just put some pinned properties. We're going to give the rating, and we're going to give the generative ability over here. Boom. I'm actually going to remove this one. We're going to say full width. And then the first chapter is once again going to be reflection and insight. And just like we did with the other reflection questions, we will have to reset this once again because we copied it in from the existing system. So I'm going to go over here, 6 life areas. I don't think this works. It does work. Okay. That's a quicker way to do it. 6 life areas at that relationship. And then also inside of this view, we have to go to this filter, sort of delete that one. Then we can go back into the 6 life areas, which we did not yet call 6 life area template. Linked view. Nope. Reflections. 6 life area reflections. Okay. There's going to be 3 questions that we are going to ask ourselves. The first one is, what does this life area mean to you? So earlier I gave a little overview of what these life areas mean to me from my perspective, but what does creativity mean to you? what does a rich social life mean to you? Right? You really want to make this model yourself and also understand, this is part of this question, understand these life areas that make them really resonate. Because I've met so many people over the years that I sort of talked about this stuff with, and they just go, I never considered also focusing on my social life as like an actual thing to focus on, or my spiritual life, or even my creative life, or even my financial life. It's like, you can do that. Yeah, you can look at your life and be like, hey, I want to develop in many different ways. And for many people, that's just not a thing. So by asking these questions for each life areas, we also make them more salient, and we actually make them a thing to focus on. The second question is, what are you currently doing to nourish this life area? So that's a good question to ask. What are you currently doing to nourish this life area? Are you already working out? Do you already have some sort of creative practice? Are you seeing friends on a regular basis? Are you investing money? Right? There's all these different things that we can do per life area. And then the third question, I think this is a very interesting one. What would mastery in this life area look like for you? Ideally, we master all these life areas. I think that's when we get the most beautiful life that we can live. When we've mastered all of these life areas, but there's never going to be a perfection, right? But we can think about, what does mastery look like to me? If I would really have mastered the physical life area, what can I do? Can I just put my hands on the floor with straight legs, which is something that for the life of me I can't? Can I just run a marathon any given day, like snap my fingers, go run a marathon? Am I lean? Am I able to pick up my children? Or maybe for the creative area, mastery is I can make music, or I can make videos, or I can make paintings, or I can build a business, right? So for each of these life areas, we can think, what would mastery look like to me? And this almost feels like a vision goal. And that is also why the next tab over here is going to be related vision goals. So we're going to make a few in here. And we're going to call this one 6 life areas. All right, these all I'm going to say. Time horizon is archive just for now. That's the only stuff. Actually, I also want to see the time that has elapsed. We go back into this life area template. Say vision goals. Boom. And we will need to make a filter that says vision goals contains this life area template, so that inside of every life area, we can add one vision goal. Now, I would really recommend not going over one, because if you do one for every life area, we're already going to have 6 vision goals, and that's plenty of vision to work around. So based on these life areas, we can set goals. So we help ourselves broadening with these life areas and then deepening through the goals that we set for in the future, right? So for example, if this is the physical life area, I could say, okay, my vision goal is that 10 years from now, I am able to pick up my children, or I am able to do 100 pull-ups just like that whenever you ask me to, or I am able to run a triathlon. That could then be a vision goal related to that particular life area. From the future here. If you want to build this Notion system from scratch using this masterclass, then all power to you. However, if you want to start using the system straight away, then I can highly recommend getting the Notion of Life template. And inside of this template, you will find ways to quick capture and create action items and notes. You will be able to organize your projects, to set vision goals, SMART goals, to track your core insights. You will be able to track habits with, I gotta say it, the best habit tracker that has ever been built inside of Notion. And on top of that, we have a whole bunch of user-friendly formulas, automations, data visualizations, many databases, many templates. All of this stuff that we are doing inside of this masterclass, you can start using it straight away. And as a little cherry on top, the first 50 people to get this template will get a free 1-hour coaching session with yours truly. So if you want to support the work that I'm doing, and if you want to start using the system straight away, then check out the link in the description down below to get instant access. All right, let's get back to the masterclass. I'm just going to remove this little mountain over here. Later, we're also going to add the core insights to this, but that's the next chapter. And then for each of the life areas, we are going to add a little 20/80 checklist over here. I already prepared those checklists for you so that you can see what are the 20% of activities that I can do for each life area. Now, instead of pimping this template further, we are now going to actually generate, based on this template, for all views, I'm going to generate the 6 templates. So I'm going to say life area template. I'm going to do this. For all and then we're going to create a new view, one we haven't done before, a gallery view, which allows us to show things in a gallery. And currently we have in the layout the option that we want to see the page content over here. So you literally see the content that's on the page in this little card. What we're going to do instead, is we're going to say, I want to see the page cover. And then for each of these different life areas, we have created some custom covers. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to say, okay, for this one, I want to upload the creative area. And then I'm also going to just grab this 20/80 for you, and we're going to paste it in here. Here is the 20/80 for this life area, right? Where there's a little to-do list. You can just simply read this for each of the life areas and see what are the activities that you can do. So for example, for creative thinking, it's tinkering and building a lot of stuff, whatever that may be. Practice having ideas and applying them. Learn a practical or productive skill. Study other people and their creations. These are time-tested things. These are things that have been around for ages, but it just gives you a little checklist. What is like the 20% of different activities that I could do to get 80% of the result for this particular life area? Okay, so we got the creative area. Then next up, just going to grab the 20/80 as well. And we're going to add the cover over here. Going to get the spiritual area. And let's do the social one. Let's also get the $20.80 for the social. And once again, it's very simple things, right? Cut out people from your life that don't genuinely want the best for you. Be honest and truthful in the things that you say. Join a class in public speaking or improv. These are all very simple things you can do. Interact, just talk to people. Go out, talk to people, practice. Go, practice. 20/80. 20/80 for the social area. 20/80 for the financial area. This one is particularly interesting. So much industry, so much content geared around how to become rich, how to make money. And usually those people are quite literally selling you how to make money, and that is then making them money, right? So it's like a self-referential thing. The basics are very easy. Make a budget, calculate your average spending and income, and make sure that there's more money coming in than coming out, right? That's how we save money. Automate as many as of your financial transactions as you can, right? The less time you have to consciously make decisions, the easier it is to not make bad money decisions. Cut out any purchases that you aren't passionate about. Invest money on a continual and consistent basis. Start your own business. Acquire equity in a business, some way of doing that. And learn new skills that can help you land a better paying job. If you would master all these things, you're good for life. So once again, it's all relatively simple, but it's things that you can use to just master these life areas. And like, I didn't come up with this stuff, right? This stuff has been around for ages and it works. It's free and it works. All right, let's do the mental area. And last but not least, we're going to do the physical. All right, physical area, another one of those where all these diets and hacks and tricks and do this to get a six-pack in 3 months and all the blah-de-blah. It is simple. Just eat nutritious foods, work out regularly, dedicate training to flexibility and mobility, get enough sleep. It's all not that complicated, right? And it's free. It's free. It's nice, you know? So a lot of this stuff is just free. You can get it, which is also why there's no business model, which is why people very often try to sell us all sort of nonsense because that makes money, right? And I get it. We need to make money, but it's still... I gave this one the wrong banner. There we go. Gonna drag that one over here. And we're just gonna hide the title. And boom. This right here is our 6 life areas database. And this one also the one where we can interact with. All right, this one's ultimately going to end up in our inside zone. Later on, we're going to populate each and every one of these zones. But for now, we can just put this one here. And just like that, we can easily access all of these life areas from inside of our inside zone. Okay, beautiful.